For the first 3 days of the trial, we heard testimony on behalf of witnesses called by Montgomery and his attorneys for evidence that Montgomery's attorneys allege should lead Judge John David Preston to overturn, if you will, the election of November and declare Montgomery the title and position, or give him the title and position of Magoffin County Judge Executive. Today, however, it was the second half, so to speak, of the trial where attorneys for Hardin and the Magoffin County Board of Elections began calling their witnesses to testify to the contrary. Their first witness called was a handwriting expert, a forensic document examiner, if you will, from Louisville. His name is Stephen Slider. He was called and asked to testify after reviewing the conclusion that was submitted during testimony on behalf of Mr. Thomas Vastrick, the handwriting expert called on behalf of Montgomery. In question, those different signatures on voter absentee registration cards and absentee ballot applications.
I would expect that writer's signature could very easily change. And I don't see enough differences here to make me think that this is not the same person.
So is it your testimony that you wouldn't even put this on your list of further reviews?
Correct, I would not have.
And even if it were identified or marked, or I think you said flagged, as a question, then you wouldn't say this wasn't from the same writer, you just request more contemporaneous exemplars.
Yes. And I perceive these to be the same writer for all three signatures. The top one shows a little more tremor, particularly in the capital I. The rest of it is better. I don't know the circumstances of signing any of these, but I don't see differences here that would have caused me to flag this for further work.
And by circumstances, you mean the posture of the individual?
Yeah, writing position and the whole, everything that it impacts the...
And so this person was identified, again, like the first two, as someone by opposing counsel's handwriting expert as not being the same person. This is, my understanding, not one that you would flag.
I would not.
And again, if you did flag her, which you would, you're saying not, but if you did, you would simply ask for more exemplars and not make a conclusion about it not being the same one.
Yes. I would not have flagged this. This is a good example of just natural variation. If you look at the bottom signature, the R in or has a little loop at the top left corner of it. And then the next one is just rounded at the top. And then up here we get two little points on both sides of the R. Those are the kinds of variations that you see when you have a large collection of exemplars. Sometimes they do this, sometimes they don't. So I would not have flagged this for getting further exemplars, but it does kind of illustrate what I expect to see in normal variation.
And would you conclude that any of those signatures, any of those individuals, were not from the same author? Would that be your conclusion on any of those?
No, I would say you cannot conclude that from just a one-on-one limitation.
Of all of the names, so you would conclude a single one wasn't the same author?
Without further material.
Okay. Of all of those that are listed, would you conclude that a number of those are sufficiently similar such that no flag needs to be placed on them?
Yes.
In your review, did you flag any of them as needing further examination?
Yes. Short list.
You say a short list, approximately how many?
10, maybe more or less.
Okay, approximately 10. And of those 10, you don't conclude that any of those were not the same author, correct?
That's correct.
And so what you would do with the 10, if you were trying to determine whether that they're not the same author, trying to bolster that conclusion or reach that result?
Well,
go ahead.
I wouldn't be doing that.
Okay.
I would be trying to finish the examination, whatever it concluded.
And so of those 10, you would get more exemplars?
I would ask, yeah, receive more.
That's the bottom line?
Yes.
To further summarize the statements on behalf of Mr. Slider, he examined the complete list of names that were submitted on behalf of Mr. Vastrick, the handwriting analysis or analyst or expert for John Montgomery. He claims that being Mr. Slider before you now, out of the approximate 75 to 100 names that were brought into question by Montgomery's attorneys, there were only 10 that he could see that would raise red flags per his experience as to being two different signatures from two different people in reference to the absentee application and their voter registration card. Something Mr. Slider also referred to in a portion of his cross-examination by Montgomery's attorneys.
So, Mr. Slider, now, I think I understand now a little bit better. So you're basically saying that with regards to all the signatures, all but 10, you can't determine whether or not it was the original author, right?
No, I don't think that is right.
Okay.
Of the long list in the other experts' reports, out of all of those, there was this plus or minus 10 plus or minus that I would have requested additional material on. The rest of those names in his reports, I would not have requested additional material. I would not have flagged those.
But as we stand here today, you can't tell me which names those are?
I don't have that list. That would be the ones that I would have flagged.
The ones you wouldn't have flagged?
That I would not have flagged?
Yeah.
No, I don't have that. I don't have them segregated.
The next witness called was McGoffin County Deputy Judge and Emergency Management Director Mike Wilson. There was testimony rendered on behalf of witnesses for Montgomery alleging work done on private property on behalf of the county. Witness Mike Wilson was called to refute that testimony. He referred to gravel and tile work done on several different locations, as well as other work done throughout the county.
6 years.
What was your position with the county from roughly June 2014 to December 2014?
Deputy Judge and EM Director.
Deputy Judge of McGoffin County. Are you aware of any time or any work that the county performed on Mr. Larry and Renee Shepard's private property in this county? So to your knowledge, there was no work performed on their private property?
Not on private property, sir.
Okay.
And has the county done some work on what is known as Dodson Brine for Greenhouse Hall?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to show you, this has been introduced in evidence, Judge Rowley. I've got a separate series of exhibits so the court can keep our exhibits straight. What does that photograph show?
We installed a tile, I think it's 15 or 18 inch tile under the roadway.
All right. And whose residence is this, as far as you know?
It's some call them Kermit House, some people call them Arnold House.
And do you know why that was installed?
Up above.
Can I give him
Just left us. On this ditch line, it used to get inundated with a lot of water. And up above here, there's a private entrance. And that water would run off, would come off the road and inundate this ditch line with water where it would completely fill up. It would come across the road and go into Mr. House's property alongside his roadway, and also there's another house over here, Mr. Huseman, and we always had a lot of issues with it. We ran leaders in the past to try to mitigate the issue, but we never were successful.
And did you ever get complaints about this water condition?
Well, several times.
All right. And I want to show you this has been introduced, but I want to put it up separately. What was done? Does that show anything?
That's the extension of the tile that you did in the last slide. And then we had to take the tile all the way down to the creek, which extends all the way this parallel down to this property line. And it dumps into the tributary of the Licking River.
Well, did you have to cross the private property there to do that?
Yes, sir.
Well, why did you do it that way?
The gentleman, Mr. Howes, he had no problem with us bringing the pipe or the top cover to here. But if we did that to relieve the ditch line issue, all that water would inundate his property line with a lot of water. So he told us he had no problem with it, but we had his permission to take it all the way to the creek up here.
Would you explain, whose driveway is that?
Mr. Marty Perkins.
All right. And can you tell the poor what work, if any, was done on that approach to the county?
Yeah, we installed a 12-inch tile parallel with that road. It was collapsed on one end, and it wouldn't let the water flow through the culvert, and it was causing a hazardous condition, diverting the water onto the blacktop road.
And again, that was part of the maintenance.
Yes.
Now, one thing by way of further clarification, at my request that you go up there and get another photograph of that road.
Yes, sir.
Is that a copy of that photograph?
Yes, sir.
And how far did the county gravel?
They went about 20, 25 foot, pretty close in this area. The gentleman, when the gentleman that was running the backhoe and installed, it's normal practice to put gravel over on top of any type of aggregate to keep the tile in place. And that's what he done here when the truck came. When the truck came, he placed the material here because he worked over on this side of the road. He'd damaged the approach here, so we back drug that aggregate after it was covered up on the tile and back drug it up as far as we could.
And you know where Mr. Gary or Mr. Rider lives?
Yes, sir.
And I believe there's been testimony in this case by Michael Elton about gravel being done on Mr. Rider, on Mr. Brewster's property. To your knowledge, did the county ever authorize gravel on Mr. Rider's property?
No, sir. That would never happen.
And for someone, is it physically possible for somebody living in this neighborhood on Dawson Branch to see a county truck put gravel on Mr. Rider's property?
No, sir. It was about 7, 8 miles away.
And I believe there's been some testimony here about Renee Shepherd's property. Was that road taken into the physical court?
Yes, sir.
From there, testimony left the topic of work done on private property and then centered around specifically the Flat Fork Precinct for a while. Several individuals were called, including Democratic challenger Samantha Arnott. She testified under oath and on the stand that she didn't see any improprieties at all in the Flat Fork Precinct and thought that all was done fair and honestly in regards to the Election Day activities. Mr. Eric Bishop, who served as a sheriff in the Flat Fork Precinct, also took the stand, also, of course, called to testify on behalf of attorneys representing Hardin and the McGoffin County Board of Elections, and he, too, testified that he believed all to be fair and honest per the happenings of the Flat Fork Precinct and all the election officers who were there working in attendance that day. While Jerry Hilton testified to accounts pertaining to the in-house voting, the absentee machine in the McGoffin County Courthouse, which is established there for a period of approximately 2 weeks, testifying that he saw no irregularities or improprieties and saw nothing illegal for in-house voting, as he was a Democratic challenger for the absentee machine. Similar to testimony given by Garlina Workman, who is a Republican challenger for the in-house voting or absentee machine in the McGoffin County Courthouse, who too testified that she saw no irregularities or improprieties during her service as a Republican challenger. In other testimony, Lorraine Holbrook, who owns Holbrook Mobile Home Park in Sagersville, was called to testify and questioned by attorneys on both sides in regards to allegations of misconduct by tenants.
How do you know that she got her stuff out this weekend?
Well, some of the neighbors told me.
Okay. She's made some allegations regarding the election. Why did Miss Cole leave the trailer? Why had she moved out of your trailer park?
I had her evicted.
And why did you have her evicted?
Well, she was having, when she moved there, it was supposed to be just her. And she had a lot of family members moved in with her, and they were breaking in people's places, stealing, and accused of it. I had to call them on her several times.
Okay. Did she have any felons living with her?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know, are you aware that she had a bench warrant for a felony charge out on her?
No.
You consider yourself a supporter of Dr. Hartman, correct?
Yes.
Okay. As far as your job, your employment's connected to Mr. Hartman, isn't it?
Right now?
Your employment is connected to Mr. Hartman?
Department?
Yes.
No.
What do you do?
I work in the health department, but I'm in the health department.
And does Dr. Hartman oversee the health department at all?
No.
Ms. Holbrook, have you ever told anyone how to vote?
No.
Has anyone ever accused you
I don't know.
of telling them how to vote?
I have no idea.
Has anyone ever accused you in an eviction proceeding in a courtroom?
I heard that. I heard that.
Okay.
They did.
What happened?
I had two renters that was giving me problems, and I had them evicted. And that's they said I had them evicted because I wanted to vote for her.
In fact, one of the renters was Ricky Romine, correct?
Yes.
And Ricky Romine said to the court that they wanted to leave because you kept telling them how to vote, correct?
That's what I heard.
Does Ricky Romine still live?
No, he's been gone since August, I think.
And when was this hearing?
When
When did this happen? When did Ricky Romine make those statements?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Was it July this year?
I'm
It was in
sorry.
July this year. Does that sound right?
Yes, it is.
Going back to testimony, the next witness was Mr. Kermit House. During testimony on behalf of a witness, that being Michael Helton, called by Montgomery's attorneys, Helton testified as to pictures he said he took that seemed to show county equipment and workers or employees working on private property in the Dotson Branch area, including the residence of a Kermit House. House testified that while the county was also in that area on the day in question, per Helton's testimony, that he was also having private work done and had documentation to support that.
My driveway and underneath my house. Okay. Now, while that work was going on, did you have any work done of your own? I had a septic tank put in. Same day that they're doing the work, I've got the check stub shirt showing the work and the man put it in. Okay, and where I bought it and everything. Your Honor, so this work, the county didn't pay for that work, did they? The county did not pay for your septic tank, did they? No, I did.
Renee Arnett Shepard, McGoffin County Court Clerk, was called back to the stand, asked by her attorneys as to referring to the number of voters, the high turnout for the November election, also how that was influenced by local school board races, a mayor's race, and the Senate race, and how a higher turnout also alluded to a higher number of absentee votes. In cross-examination on behalf of attorneys for Mr. John Montgomery, he also indicated that there was a high number of absentees, but also indicated that there had been a high number of absentees in each and all of the elections in which Dr. Charles Hardin was a candidate on the Democratic ballot. And the final person to testify was local pastor Justin Williams, who became a member of the Board of Elections after being appointed to fill a vacancy left behind by local accountant Mike Prater, who resigned about halfway into the process after serving 4 or 5 days as a member of the Board of Elections. Throughout the in-house voting procedure, voting on the absentee machine in the Magoffin County Courthouse. Williams testified that after being appointed and serving on the position that he very closely watched and monitored any and all occurrences inside the Magoffin County Courthouse, keeping a close eye on any and all actions, looking for any possible improprieties on behalf of in-house machine absentee voting. He testified that he saw absolutely 0 improprieties. He said that also in counting of the absentees on election night, that it was a very thorough process and one that admittedly may not have followed statute, was one that they all agreed to follow for an effort to see that the absentees, nearly 1,200, were counted in a timely manner.
Mr. Williams, to sum up, before being appointed, you inserted yourself into this elections process.
Yes.
And then you were appointed by the Republicans to hold the fort and make sure nothing happened.
Yes.
You feel like you did that?
Yes.
In the in-house balloting process?
Yes.
In the absentee ballot counting process?
Yes.
You were looking for something wrong.
Yes.
You didn't find anything.
No.
Can you think of, as you sit here today, do you think that the people who voted in-house ballot, in-house absentee ballot, that they should be disenfranchised?
I voted in-house and I don't want to be disenfranchised, so no, I don't think they should be.
You think the process, the in-house balloting process was fair?
Yes.
Honest?
Yes.
Honorable?
Yes.
Even to your standards?
Yes.
You think that the counting process was fair?
Yes.
Honest?
Yes.
Honorable?
Yes.
And even to your strict standards?
Yes.
We're gonna.
Mr. Williams, I understand that you engaged in a text conversation with Justin Pratt the day after election day. Is that correct?
Talk to him on the phone.
You didn't exchange texts with him?
I'll serve for me.
Sometime on about 11:45.
I don't recall.
Do you remember texting him at all on that morning?
I remember talking to him. I'm not. I'll serve.
You think there'd be anything that would refresh your recollection on that?
I'm sure you have some.
Sure do. Sure. Williams, it looks as though, you and Justin Pratt talked about emailing Bill Easton of the Herald Leader, right?
Yes.
In fact, you and Justin Pratt talked about emailing Bill Easton about the absentee ballot situation, correct?
Yes, apparently.
You had serious concerns regarding the absentee ballot situation at this point, didn't you?
Not the process.
I see. So there's a difference then between the process and the other?
Yes.
What is the other?
I don't know what happens outside the courthouse. I don't know what happens. All I know is that when we counted the absentees, when we counted the ballots, that was a fair and honest representation of the fair and accurate count of votes that were cast.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Because you have no idea about anything regarding the applications that were sent in for absentee ballots, right?
No.
You have no idea whether the applications were filled out correctly?
No.
Why did you tell Mr. Pratt that any concerns would have to get before a judge because the election board would never vote for it?
had no proof that anything wrong had taken place. Two, I'm certain the clerk is not going to throw out the results of the election when she's been declared the winner, and we, as an election board, have done absolutely nothing wrong.
And you did feel the need to carry on another conversation with Mr. Pratt on these issues, right?
He sent me a text and called me.
And during that conversation, did you likewise express concerns outside of the process?
I don't know.
Did you tell Mr. Pratt that you thought the results were ridiculous?
I don't know.
Did you tell Mr. Pratt that John had won comfortably?
On election day.
So you did tell him?
I don't know if I said it to him.
But you recognize that?
Yes.
Did you tell Mr. Pratt anything regarding the extremely high number of absentee turnout and the 38 points that Dr. Harding won?
That's established.
But did you express any concern to Mr. Pratt regarding that?
I don't know.
And we're just about 3 minutes over, and that really comes to the end of testimony. Mr. Williams was the last to testify, and then it immediately was followed by a motion for dismissal on behalf of attorneys representing the Board of Elections, of which, of course, I already covered Mr. Williams as one of the officers, as well as Dr. Charles Hardin. A lengthy explanation as to why it should be dismissed was given. Also, a lengthy explanation from Mr. Flores to the left of your screen, attorneys representing John Montgomery, as to why it should not be dismissed and the judge should render a decision and the case should continue. That conversation lasts several minutes long, more than I have time for this evening. I may be able to work it into tomorrow night's program. I can tell you this: the judge left saying that he had taken more than 60 pages of personal notes and that he would give a ruling on the motion as soon as time would allow. We expected, he also indicated that it would take him longer than a normal case given the length of his notes, but that it would be done in as timely of a fashion as possible. For now, that's my time. Thank you, and we'll see you back here tomorrow night.